Yes, chapter 19. Lisa had been my best friend ever since elementary school, which was why keeping so many secrets from her lately had hurt so much. She was always open with me, always willing to share what was on her mind, but then maybe that was because she had no choice. I used to be that way with her, yet at some point I could start locking my secrets and unable to tell her about Dremet or the real reason I could messed up with Stan. I hated it being that way. It ate me up inside and made me feel guilty around her. Today, however, there was absolutely no way I could wiggle out of explaining what had happened at the airport. Even if I made up something, the fact that I was on half time with Christian could be a huge tip off that something was going on. No excuses this time. So, as much as it hurt, I gave her and Christian, as well as Eve and Andre, who were hanging around, the short version of what had happened. You think you saw ghosts? Christian exclaimed. Seriously? The look on his face showed me that he was already building a life of sin commands to make. Look, I snapped. I told you what was going on, but I don't want to elaborate on it. I'm getting worked on it. So just let it drop. Rose, began Lisa uneasily. A hurricane of emotion was beating through to me from her fear, concern, shock. Her compassion made me feel that much worse. I shook my head. No less. Please, you guys can think whatever you want about me or make up your own theories, but we are not going to talk about it, not now. Just leave me alone about it. I expected Lisa to barrage me because of her normal persistence. I expected Arjun and Christian to be because of their irritating natures. But even though my words had been simple, I realized I could be delivered them with a hardness both in voice and manners. It was Lisa's surprised mental reaction that alerted me to do that, and that I needed only to look at the guys' faces to realize I must have sounded incredibly bitchy. Sorry, I mumbled. I appreciate the concern, but I'm just not in the mood. Lisa eyed me. Later, she said in my mind. I gave her a brief nod, secretly wondering how I could avoid that conversation. She and Adrian had met to practice magic again. I still liked being able to close to her, but I was only able to do so because Christian was hanging around too, and honestly, I could not figure out why he stayed. I guess he was still a little jealous despite everything that had happened. Of course, if he could known about the Queen's matchmaking scheme, he might have good reason, nothing less. It was clear these magic lessons were starting to bore him. We were in Miss Neary's classroom, and he pulled two desks together and stretched out across them, toasting an arm over his eyes. Wake me when it gets interesting, he said. Eid and I stood in the central portion that let us watch the door and windows while also staying near the Morai. You really saw Manso? Eid whispered to me. He turned sheepish. Sorry, you said you don't want to talk about it. I started to say yes. That was exactly what I could said. But then I saw the look on Eid's face. He was not asking me about this out of previous curiosity. He asked because of Manson, because of his coldness, and because Eid was not over his best friend's death any more than I was. I think he found the idea of Manson communicating from beyond the grave reassuring, but then he had not been the one to actually see Manson ghost. I think it was him. I murmured back. I don't know. Everyone think I imagined it. How did he look? Was he upset? He looked sad, really sad. If it was really him, I don't know. Eve looked at the ground momentarily, forgetting to watch the room. I have always wondered if he was upset that we don't save him. There was nothing we could have done. I told him, retelling exactly what everyone had told me. But I wonder that too, because Father Andrew had mentioned that ghosts sometimes come back for revenge, but Manson don't look that way. He just seems like he wanted to tell me something. He looked back up suddenly, realizing he was still on guard duty. He don't say anything else after that, but I know where his thoughts were. Meanwhile, Andre and Lisa were making progress, or rather, Andre was. The two of them had dug a bunch of scraggly plants that had died or gone dormant for the winter and put them in the little pots. The pots were now lined up in a row on a long table. Lisa touched one, and I felt the aerobic of magic born within her. A moment later, the scrappy little plant turned green and sprouted leaves. Adrian started hard at it, as though it held all the secrets of the universe, and then exhaled deeply. Okay, here goes nothing. He lightly placed his fingers on a different plant. He goes, nothing might have been an accurate statement because nothing actually happened. Then, a few moments later, the plant surged a little. A hint of green started to grow in it, and then it stopped. You did it, said Lisa, impressed. I could also feel that she was little jealous. Andrian had learned one of her tricks, but she still had not learned any of us. Hardly, he said, glaring at the plant. He was completely sober, with none of his vices to mellow him. Spirit had nothing to stop it from making him feel irritable. With our moods, we actually have something in common tonight. Damn it. Are you kidding? She asked. It was great. You made a plant grow with your mind. That's amazing. Not as good as you do, he said, still sounding little like he was 10 years old. I could not help it but pipe in. Then stop bitching and take a try again. He glanced over at me, a smile twisting his lips. Hey, no advice, ghost girl. Guardian should be seen and not heard. I flipped him off for the ghost girl comment, but he don't notice because Lisa was talking to him again. She's right. Try it again. You do it one more time, he said. I want to watch you. I can kind of feel what you do to it. She performed her trick on another plant. I again felt the magic flare up as well as the joy that came with it, and then she flattered. A flash of fear and instant ability tingled the magic, smacking a little of her off when her mental state had deteriorated so badly. No, no, I begged silently. It is happening. I know it could if she kept using the magic. Please don't let it happen again. And like that, the dark spot within her magic went away. All of her thoughts and feelings returned to normal. I noticed then that she could also made the plant grow. I had missed it because I had been distracted by her laps. Adrian had missed the magic too because his eyes were on me. His expression was troubled and very, very confused. Okay, said Lisa happily. She don't realize he don't pay attention. Try again. Adrian focused his attention back on their work. Signing, he moved to a new plant, but she gestured him back. No, keep working on the one you started. Maybe you can only do it in a small bursts. Nodding, he turned his attention to his original plant. For a few minutes, he just did nothing but stare. Silence regained in the room. I could never see him so focused on anything, and sweat was actually forming in his forehead. Finally, at long last, the plant twitched again. It grew even greener, and tiny buds appeared on it. Glancing up at him, I saw him narrow his eyes and grit his teeth, no doubt concentrating for all he was worth. The birds burst, leaves and tiny white flowers appeared. Lisa made what could only be called a whoop of joy. You did it! She hugged him, and feelings of delight washed over me from her. She was sincerely happy that he could be able to do it, and while she was still disappointed at her lack of progress, it inspired hope in her that he could replicate her abilities. That meant they truly could learn from each other. I cannot wait until I am able to do something new, she said, still a tiny bit jealous. Arjun tapped a notebook. Well, there are plenty of other tricks in the world of spirits. You could Go to the be able you could have go to be able to learn at least one of them. What is that? I asked. Remember that research I did on people who could show weird behaviors? She asked. We made a list of all the different things that showed up. I did remember in her search to find others with spirit. She could uncover claim about Mora demonstrating abilities no one had ever seen. Few people believed their reports were true, but Lisa was convinced they were spirit users. Along with healing, auroras, and dream walking, we seems to also have some super compulsion going on. You already know that. I said, no, this is even more hardcore. It is not just telling people what to do, it is also making them see and feel things that are not even there. What, like hallucination? I asked. Kind of, he said. There are stories of people using compulsion to make others live through their worst nightmares, thinking they are being attacked or whatever. A shiver that is actually kind of scary and awesome, said Adrian. Lisa agreed with me. I don't know, regular compulsion is one thing, but that just seems wrong. Christian yawned. Now the victory has been achieved. Can we all call it a night with the magic? Glancing behind me, I saw the Christian was sitting up and alert. His eyes were on Lisa and Adrian, and he don't look happy about the victory hug. Lisa and Christian have broken apart, though not because they could notice his reaction. They were both too distracted by their own excitement to notice his glare. Can you do it again? Asked Lisa eagerly. Make it clear? Adrian shook his head. Not right now. That took a lot out of me. I think I need a cigarette. He gestured in Christian direction. Go do something with your guy. He is being terribly patient through all of this. Lisa walked over to Christian, her face alight with joy. She looked beautiful and radiant, and I could tell it was hard for him to stay too mad at her. The harsh expression on his face softened, and I saw the rare gentleness that only she could bring out in him. Let's go back to the doorway, she said, gathering his hand. We set off. Each walked near guard with Lisa and Christian, which left me with Fargard. It also left me with Adrian, who had chosen to lag behind and talk to me. He was smoking, so I got to be the one to deal with the toxic cloud that generated. Honestly, I could figure out why no one in charge had bursted him from this. I wrinkled my nose at the smell. You know, you can always be for our fofo guard and stay behind with the thing. I told him, I have had enough. He dropped the cigarette and stamped it out, leaving it behind. I hated that almost as much as him smoked in the first place. What do you think, little Tampere? He asked. I was pretty badass with the plan, wasn't I? Of course. It could have been more badass if I don't know, held an Aputi Koreo limb back. Or maybe separated Simonson twins, but that is came with more practice. If you want some advice, which I'm sure you don't, you guys should lay off on the magic. Christian still thinks you're moving in on Lisa. What? He asked, mock astonishment. Does not he know my heart belongs to you? It does not, and no, he is still worried about it, despite what I have told him. You know, I bet if we started making out right now, it could make him feel better. If you touch me, I said pleasantly, I will provide you with the opportunity to see if you can heal yourself. Then we could see how badass you really are. I could get Lisa to heal me, he said smugly. It could be easy for her, although. The sadistic smirk faded. Something weird happened when she used her magic. Yeah, I said, I know. Could you sense it too? No, but I saw it. He frowned. Yes. Remember when you asked about being crazy? And I said you are not? Yeah. I think I might have been wrong. I think you're crazy. I nearly stopped walking. What the hell does that mean? Well, you see, the thing is, then when Lisa did the second plant, her Aurora dimmed a little. That could go along with what I felt, I said. It was kind of like I don't know, grew mentally fragile for a moment, kind of like she used to, but it went away. He nodded. Yeah, that thing. The darkness in Aurora went away and into yours. Like I have noticed before that you guys have a big difference in Auroras, but this time I saw it happening. It was like that spot of darkness jumped out of hers and into yours. Something about that made me shiver. What does that mean? Well, this is why I think you're crazy. Lisa is not having any side effects from her magic anymore, right? And you, well, you have been feeling kind of short tempered lately, and you're like seeing ghosts. He said the words casually, like seeing ghosts was just something that happened from time to time. I think whatever harmful thing there is in the spirit that screws with the mind is leaking out of her and into you. It is making her stay stable, and you, well, as I said, you're seeing ghosts. It was like being smacked in the face, a new theory, not trauma, not real ghosts, just me catching Lisa's madness. I remember how she could be at her worst, depression and self-destructive. I remember our former teacher, Miss Crab, who could also be a spirit user and completely out of her mind enough to become Strigoi. No, I said in a strained voice, that is not happening to me. What about your bond? You have that connection. Her thoughts and feelings creep into you. Why not the madness too? Adrian Manners was typically light and curious. He don't realize just how much this was starting to freak me out. Because it does not make any. And then it hit me. The answer we could have been searching for this whole time. Stan Valdemix had struggled his whole life with spirit side effects. He had been dreamed and delusion experience he wrote off to demons. But he had not gone completely crazy or tried to kill himself. Lisa and have felt certain that it was because he had a Shadowkiss guardian Anna, that sharing, that bond with her had helped him. We could assume it was simply the act of having such a close friend around, someone who could support him and talk to him through the bad times, since they could had antidepressants or anti-anxiety drugs back then. But what if? What if? I could not breathe. I could not go another single moment without knowing the answer. What time was it anyway? An hour or so before the crew flew. I had to find out. I came to an abrupt halt, nearly slipping on the silk ground. Christian! The group in front of us stopped and looked back at me and Adrian. Yeah, Christian asked. I need to take a detour, or rather, we do, since I cannot go anywhere without you. We need to go to the church. His eyebrows rose in surprise. What? You need to confess something? Don't ask questions, please. It is only takes a few minutes. Concern crossed Lisa's face. Well, we can all go. No, we will be fast. I don't want her there. I don't want her to hear the answer. I was certain I could get. Go to the room. We will catch up. Please, Christian. He studied me, expression obstinately between wanting to mock me or wanting to help. He was not a complete jerk after all. The later emotion won out. Okay, but if you try to get me to pray with you, I walk. He and I split off towards the chapel. I moved so fast that he had to scrope to keep up. I don't suppose you want to tell me what this is about? He asked. No, I would appreciate your cooperation though. Always glad to help, he said. I was certain he was rolling his eyes, but I was more focused on the path ahead. We reached the chapel and the door was locked. Unsurprisingly, I knocked on it, starting anxiously around to see if any light shone through the windows. I don't look like it. You know, I have broken in there before, said Christian, if you need inside. No more than that. I need to see the priest. Damn it, he's not here. He's probably in bed. Damn it. I repeated, feeling only a little bad about swearing on a chapel doorstep. If the priest was in bed, he could be. off in the moist of housing and inaccessible. I needed to. The door opened, and Father Andrew peered out at us. He looked surprised but not upset. Reals? Christian, is something wrong? I have to ask you a question. I told him. It won't take long. His surprise grew, but he stepped aside so we could enter. We all stopped and stood in the chapel lobby, just outside the main sanctuary. I was just about to go home for the night. Father Andrew told us I was shutting down everything. You told me that Stein Waldemik lived a long life and died of old age. Is that true? Yes, he said slowly. To the best of my knowledge, all the books I have read, including this latest one, as say as much. What about Anna? I demanded. It sounded like I was on the verge of hysteria, which I kind of was. What about her? What happened to her? How did she die? All this time, Lisa and had worried about Val's outcome. We could never consider Anna's. Ah, well, Father Andrew signed. Her end was not as good. I'm afraid. She spent her whole life protecting him, although there are hints that in her old age she started growing a little unstable too. And then, I asked. Christian was looking between the priest and me, completely lost. And then, well, a couple months after Stein Waldemar passed on, she committed suicide. I squeezed my eyes shut for half a second and then opened them. This was what I could be afraid of. I'm sorry, Father Andrew said. I know how closely you have been followed their story. I don't even learn this about her until reading it recently. Taking one of one's life is sin, of course, but while considering how close they are, it is not hard to imagine how she may have felt when he was gone. And you also said that she was starting to go a little crazy? He nodded and spread his hands out. It is hard to say what the poor woman was thinking. Many factors were probably involved. Why was this so pressing? I shook my head. It was a long story. Thanks for helping. Christian and I were halfway to the doorroom before he finally asked, what was that all about? I remember you guys were looking into this. Valdemar and Anna were like Lisa and you, right? Yeah, I said glumly. Look, I don't want to get between you guys, but please don't tell Lisa about this. Not until I found out more. Just tell her I don't know. I will tell her that I suddenly panicked because I thought I had more community service scheduled. Both of us lying to her, huh? I hate it, believe me, but it is also best for her at the moment. Because if Lisa knew that she might potentially make me incense, yeah, she could take that hard. She could want to stop working her magic. Of course, that was what I could always wanted, and yet I could feel the joy in her when she used it. Could I take that away from her? Could I sacrifice myself? There is no easy answer, and I could start jumping to conclusion. Not until I knew more. Christian agreed to keep it secret, and by the time we joined the others, it was almost time for the crew through anyway. We had only about half an hour together, and then we all split off for bed, including me, since the part-time field experience agreement said I could not do nighttime duty. The steroid risk was low in general anyway, and my instructors were more concerned about me getting a full night's sleep. So, when Griffo came, I walked back to the Dampier room alone, and then, when I was almost there, he appeared again. Manson. I came to an abrupt halt and glanced around me, wishing someone else was there to witness this and settle the crazy or not thing once and for all. His purely form stood there, hands in pockets, for his coats, in an almost casual way that somehow made the experience that much weirder. Well, I said, feeling surprisingly calm, despite the sorrow that washed over me whenever I saw him. Glad to see you're alone again. I could really like the extras on the plane. He started, expression blank, and I said, it made me feel worse, guilty twisting my stomach into knots. I broke. What are you? I cried. Are you real? Am I going crazy? To my surprise, he nodded. Which? I squeezed. Yes, you are real. He nodded. Yes, I'm crazy. He shook his head. Well, I said, forcing a joke through my hemorrhage of emotion. That is a relief, but honest. What else could you say if you're a hallucination? Manson just chatted. I glanced around again, wishing someone could come by. Why are you here? Are you mad at us and looking for revenge? He shook his head, and something in me relaxed until the moment I had not realized how worried I could be about that guilt and grief had been wound up so tightly in me. Him blaming me just as Rayan had something inventable. Are you having trouble finding peace? Manson nodded and seems to grow sadder. I thought back to his final moments and swallowed back tears. I could probably have a hard time finding peace too, taken from my life before it began. Is there more than that though? Another reason you keeping coming to me? He nodded. What? I asked. There are too many questions lately. I need an answer. What it is? What do I need to do? But anything other than us or no question was beyond us, apparently. He opened his mouth as though he could say something. He looked like he was trying hard, like Adrian had with the plant, but no sound came out. I'm sorry, I whispered. I'm sorry, I don't understand. And I'm sorry for everything else. Manson gave me one last wishful look and then vanished.